because we've got quite a lot to go through. Thanks everybody for joining on this wonderful, wet, windy night. It's one of the advantages of virtual meetings. We haven't got to drag ourselves out in the cold and the wet. So we'll make a start. Rich, is there anything in terms of public question time? Did anybody request to join us?
No, I've had no requests.
Okay, thank you. So that moves us on to item 32 then. Public Bodies Admission to Meetings Act 1960, amended by the Openness of Local Government Bodies Regulations 2014 on the 6th of August 2014. So this is just simply to note that our council meetings can now be recorded. In fact, this will be recorded, this meeting, by Rich, and will be then put together for viewing on our YouTube channel. Hopefully some people have had a chance to have a look at that. It's very good. I had a look earlier today, and it's actually good quality, Rich, isn't it? So it's
not bad.
Yeah, so it's very good. Okay, item 33, apologies. We've already had Donald's. Anybody else heard from anyone in terms of apologies?
Francis.
Oh, sorry, you said Francis as well, didn't you? Okay. I've not had anything come to me either, Rich, so which is a bit disappointing from councillors, but I'll also follow up to the councillors, because really they should, I think councillors should certainly at least be giving us apologies if they're not able to come. Item 34, any members or officers' personal and disclosable pecuniary interests in terms of the agenda? Has anybody got anything?
No.
No. Okay, that's good. And consider any written requests for new DPI dispensations rather. Anything on that, Rich? No. Okay, good. And also then item 36, to consider whether any items on the agenda should be discussed in private. I don't think they should, but anybody believe that anything we're talking about should be in private session? No. Oh, okay, that's good. Okay, that moves us on to item 37, which is confirm the minutes of the previous meeting, which were held on the 28th of September. And hopefully, in particular, this is for members only, for councillors to vote on, that all members have had a chance to look at them. Would someone be prepared to move those minutes? Thank you. Thank you, Rachel. A second. Okay. All in agreement? Yep. Yes. Okay, fine. I don't believe, Rich, there's anything on there that's not covered in the agenda, unless you've picked up anything.
No.
No. Okay, that's good. Okay, so this brings us on to the meat of the agenda. Actually, before we start with item 38, which is on the mobilisation group, just a slight change. What we're going to do to help with the discussion around the budget for this year and for next financial year is we're going to just change the order slightly. We will have a mobilisation update, and I'll give an update on the meeting I had with Colin Parr. But then what we'll do is we'll then go into the subgroups to talk with the subgroups about their feedback on their work to date and their projected work, which will then give us probably hopefully should give us a better background to then discuss the details of the budget for this year and the projected budget going forward. So if people are comfortable with that, it's okay. Yep, okay. So I will ask you, Michelle, if you would like to please take us through the update in terms of in particular, the week of the virtual events, which I have, well, I'll say now, went extremely well, and thanks to the fantastic work that yourself had done and other people that were involved in this. But I won't say any more than that, then Michelle, to let you pick up on that.
Okay. Hello, everybody. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you, everybody, for all of your support, because as you all know, it didn't go quite as expected. But in the end, I think I'm really pleased with the outcome, and all the contributors made it what it was, because with all the content that I got from you all, then being able to put it together, if I had no content, then we wouldn't have had anything. So thank you very much to everybody that was involved with providing that. It was a great success. Unfortunately for me, I pulled off a load of screenshots with stats and that, but I didn't put them into my presentation, so I'm going to just do it as I'm looking at them now. So, for instance, between the 15th of October and the 11th of November, we reached 15,000 people with all the stuff that we did on social media. On a lot of the videos, we've had up to 200 views on them on Facebook, and then we've also had a few views on our YouTube channel, and that's without me doing anything post the event. That was just from getting people to come along, so that's really good. The fact that we had comments and likes and some feedback, it's been a really positive start, but I want to utilize what we've got a bit more, so not just leaving that and saying, right, we've done that. And so one of the things is, and I think I mentioned it before, is to use all that video content and splice it up into bite-sized pieces that we can share around. So for instance, the repair shop's a really nice one, where we can have like little videos of different things being repaired and talk about how that was ongoing. And in fact, you've had a second one, but I totally forgot about that, and so I didn't do any promotion on it. So we'll hear about that later, I'm sure, from Caroline. And so yeah, overall it's been a real success, considering, and the one that surprised me the most, that I think that everybody was even more interested in, was Jimmy Dickinson and the land and agriculture, food production, and so on. So
really
that
good.
It was really, really good, and they did a lot of work for that, and yeah, and it was really interesting. So I was really pleased with that. So that's the stage one. We said we'll be doing those every quarter, so there'll be another one in about 3 months' time, and hopefully we'll have a lot more to tell people about what's happening there. One of the other things that I've been really pleased with is where people like Alison have gone out and really linked up with, I don't know how many organisations, to find out what they're all doing in her particular area and everything. And I actually, you know, I think for me, it's proven that I've got a major support, and I'm really happy that I'm not having to go it alone. So that's really good. So I did have one of the things is that I hopefully have now spoken to everybody involved, and if I haven't, please come and let me know. But I think I've had a conversation with everybody, apart from Sarah, who did try and call me today. But Sarah, you weren't aware, I'm actually supposed to be on holiday today, apart from doing this call. So any numbers that came up that I didn't recognise, I didn't speak to the person. But I did get your message, so I knew I'd be able to tell you today. I haven't spoken to Councillor Roberts, and I haven't spoken to Donald Firth either. But I have emailed Councillor Roberts, and so hopefully I'll get to speak to you at a point in time as well. We're also, it's down further on the agenda, but we've done some activity around the water refill fountain, which is great, and I'm actually in the process of writing a press release to hopefully get that included in some of the local press, what we've done there. Is anyone unaware of the water fountain? Can I get a show of hands? No, that's good. Is everyone aware that it's actually up and running and you can go and refill your bottles? Excellent. Right. It's so that's a great success. The other thing that came out of doing the event is we now have a Facebook page called actually I can do this now. I will share this from this point on. Hold on. Technology is not helping me here. Yeah, so we now have a Facebook page. We now have so we've got a Facebook page, and we've got a YouTube channel, which is I know that we've got the Home Valley Action. In fact, Rich, we probably should talk about putting lots of things on both sites so that we've got where it's relevant anyway. We've also got a website, and I will be creating a Twitter account. So just to let you know and see it, if you haven't, this is the Facebook page. So this is where we promoted all the live streaming came from Facebook. One thing to know is you don't have to have a Facebook account when I was doing all of that. Otherwise, we would have been very limiting to people who could watch it. So that's the Facebook page. This is the YouTube channel. So you can see if you missed it, you can watch them on Facebook, but this channel is open to everybody and you can go and look at every single video. But this will be populated with smaller bite-sized pieces because not everybody wants to sit and watch a video for an hour. And the one that I will be doing a lot of more work on, well, it won't be me, but we'll get to that in a minute, is the eco homes, because it's got a lot of useful information, but the format of it being a Zoom call is not as interactive and interesting. So we're going to be putting some imagery and splicing that up so that people get more information out of that. And then, oh, the picture for the website. Oh no, there you go. So, and then the website. So I just picked a few pages. Everything I did was really basic because I had to do it. But what we're going to talk about is me employing people to actually make it proper and populate it as it should be and so on. You could argue that it looks all right as it is, but it's not what I wanted. So I wanted to get it done as I wanted it to be done. So that's that. Oh, I've jumped the gun. Sorry. But anyway, that's the water refill fountain. And I apparently was the first person to use it. But yeah, so there it is. That's the biggest thing we've done. Okay. Right, I'll stop sharing.
Excellent.
Okay.
Anything else, Michelle, before we open up for
Nope,
any questions? Okay. And any questions or comments for Michelle? Oh, Rachel?
Yeah, just a few things. Firstly, well done on the virtual events. I've looked at some of them. I wasn't able to look at them at the time, but I did. I have listened to some of the videos subsequently, and lots of good content on there. And similarly, well done on setting up all the website and Facebook and things. One thing I'm just conscious of is we need to make sure as much as possible that we are sort of combining, I guess, or referring to things from the parish council website so that we maximise kind of the connection between the sites that we have, which are obviously just parish council, to the kind of wider climate emergencies thing. So I think that's something for, I'm sure you're on with that, Michelle, anyway, but I think it's about sort of reinforcing the message that yes, we're working with the community, but it's also the parish council that's sort of a strong element of that. And the other thing I just wanted to ask about for the water fountain, which I've used as well, and the water tastes nice, just to reassure people, very good. And I've seen people looking at it while walking past, so I think it does get noticed. I just wonder when because obviously there's an information board that's going to go next to it. I just wonder where we're at with the production of that, because that will sort of finish it off nicely.
Right, to answer question one, yes, I've spoken to Rich about us aligning the website with the Home Valley Parish Council. I did actually get onto gov.uk because I wanted it to have a gov.uk ending. We're not entitled to. So what we're going to do is have a link directly from the parish council site, and vice versa. I'm going to do a link from that site so that it's very obvious that it's all intertwined. And on your second part, because of the way the parish council works, and me not understanding things having to get signed off, the board has not been signed off because it's budget that has to be signed off and approved. So once that's happened, which I'm on holiday this week technically, but as soon as I get the go-to, I will just let people do it. And I think it'll take about 3 or 4 days. And then we've got to get John to actually put it up on the wall. So it's all been designed and everything. It's just that I couldn't actually get it done as I wanted to straight away.
Okay, that's fine. I'm assuming we'll look to approve that tonight at some point.
Yes,
Cool.
yeah, that would be the intention, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much, Michelle.
Okay. Anything else from anyone in terms of that? Oh, Matthew? You're on mute, Matthew. Yep.
Yeah, so just a question. I'm new to this stuff. So on the videos on YouTube, they've got a small number of views, 10 views, things like this. But on social media, you said it was 15,000. So I didn't know how those two numbers work.
Okay, so no, what the views of the videos were in the hundreds. What it means is that we reached 15,000 people, i.e. people shared it with their friends and everything. So it meant that there were 15,000 people that actually got to see that these videos were happening or available. So that's what that 15,000 is. On the YouTube channel, yeah, we've got a very small amount because I've not had the capacity to actually promote that as well as everything else that I was doing. So, and the other side of it is they are long. And in the world of social media, you need to have more bite size. It was actually John Queening pointed that out as well, and I was aware of it. So the idea was, if we'd have done it as I wanted to, that these videos would have already been broken down into bite-sized pieces, so people will look at bits of it. So for instance, in your video, you've got lots of facts over quite it's not too long, but I'd still break that down into smaller pieces so that people
Like
get
less than a minute.
Anywhere between a minute to 3 minutes, basically, is the optimum time. So that's what will be happening.
That's thanks, Matthew. Sarah? You're still on mute. Yep,
Right.
here we
Hi,
go.
hi.
You're right.
Oh yeah, Michelle, I may have missed it, but are we on Instagram as well?
No.
Because I'm new to Instagram as well, but I think it's a wonderful way of reaching young people. Well, yeah, definitely more young people, but yeah.
Seriously, Sarah, if you can split me into 10 people, I'll do that one straight away as well.
Okay.
But at the moment, it's only me contributing to all of the different social media
All right,
platforms.
yeah.
And I am only part-time as well. So
Yeah.
the next one I'm going to do is Twitter. And the jury's out for me on Instagram, but I will have a look and see about populating that as well. And actually, I can link it to Facebook, so I will do that when I have a minute and have a look.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Oh, John, go on.
Yeah, I just want to say, I thought the event was very excellent and certainly showed the power of social media in terms of getting the message out. One of the things I'm conscious of, really for Michelle, is that I think it's an excellent job in terms of dissipating the message about sort of climate change and what we're doing through the informal links of social media. But I think one thing you may help in the future is trying to get the message out by maybe more succinct breakdown, as you said, of particular videos to the individual groups. As an example, HOT have got sort of 500 people on a mailing list. River Home Connections have got another mailing list. And Fair Trade have got another one. If we can get a little sort of package or something for them, so they'll go out by the more traditional routes of sort of email links rather than the informal links of social media. But I thought generally it's all going in the right direction, and it's something I'm sure you'll build on. But I just want to make you, if you're not aware of that already, just make sure that's something that to be done, that we could use the email lists of the various community groups to spread the message even wider.
Yeah, we did do a bit of that. But, you know, I was so busy trying to get everything out that I didn't have a chance to contact. So we did something with Home First Tech. They, what's her name? Margaret Dale, she sent out to a list and so forth. But yes, of course, you know, if I'd have had the time to do it all, I'd have been sending it out a lot more to a lot more people. But I was very pleased with the support I did get, for instance, with you sending it out to HOT and so on. So, but yes, going forward, and any of you know of any group listings, if you can let me know what they are, and then I can compile a spreadsheet or something so I know which groups need to be informed.
Okay, thanks. And once we get this work done as well, Michelle, in terms of editing the videos, obviously we can be doing that anyway, can't we? We're not waiting for the next 3 months. Yeah, I think that brings us sort of neatly into the discussion in terms of mobilization, in terms of future engagement projects. You've mentioned, you know, probably 3 months for another set of events, but obviously we're going to be doing things in between. So be good, Michelle, to hear, you know, your thoughts, you know, for events upcoming, and then obviously to have that sort of sharing of ideas from the group as well. So I don't know what your thoughts are over the next couple of months.
Well, one of the things is, and Greta mentioned this, and I think it was really a very good point, is we're trying to get people to make some sort of pledge or commitment to actually participate in this so that we get the Valley involved. So one of the ideas that we had hasn't been formalised or thought through in any way, shape or form, was some form of competition where, I don't know, we maybe get people to say, look what I'm doing, and we have photography, which brings on to Sarah about Instagram, that we can have people actually putting pictures of themselves and showing what they're doing in terms of climate change to spread the word that way. We want to go into schools. It wasn't something appropriate at the beginning when they had all just got back in lockdown, but looking at how we can interact with schools to get them, the swell of the younger people involved. So that's another thing that we're going to look at. And those two, in fact, if we get those going, one of the things is I do want to get all the ducks in a row. So having all of the mini videos. So when we're trying to promote and get people involved in it, we can talk to them about the stuff we did. For instance, the cycling stuff. That, like cycling to school, for instance, getting the bike racks up and running, all those kind of things. Those are some of the projects that we're going to be looking at over the next few months. And then we can start swelling people to get them involved. The issue we have is if you get the timing wrong and you don't have everything done, then you lose the momentum. So I want to get everything ready so that we can push out with a big noise as opposed to dribs and drabs, because I've got to wait for that to get fixed and done. Yeah. For instance, the water fountain is a prime example. The water fountain went on the wall. We wanted the board to be there. I want to get a picture of Councillor Councillor Hogley and Councillor Davies next to it, so that I can use that in my promotion for the newspapers. But until the board's there, I can't do that. So yeah, those are the kind of things that we want to go forward with.
Yeah. And I think the other thing I would say is, don't be shy yet, everyone. Although we've got a mobilization group, I think this is a group for everyone. If people want to get involved in a particular activity, then people should just contact Michelle. You don't have to be, if you like, a full-time member of that committee. So certainly myself and Michelle have fairly regular meetings, and that's around a lot that is around talking about mobilization. So in the coming weeks, we will definitely be communicating some thoughts about where we should be going and asking for people's contributions to that. Okay, that's great. Thanks. Right, I'm going to jump now to a report for myself on a meeting I've had with a new strategic director for environment and climate change, Kirklees Council, somebody called Colin Parr. Well, both myself and Michelle have had discussions. I initially had a discussion, and then there was a follow-up with Michelle. Colin's joined us fairly recently. I think he actually started midway through September, if I remember. I was very impressed when I first heard him talking. It was actually a presentation to the Labour group on the council, and then I had an individual chat with him. He is very, very keen to work with us. I think this is, we've always had, since the beginning of the Climate Emergency Committee, we've had a good relationship with Kirklees, but I think it's moved on a real significant step in that Colin actively wants his team to engage with us and us working, where, if possible, on some joint projects, and clearly that would mean, fingers crossed, us being able to access more resources, and who knows, they may even find some budget as well that we might be able to take part of. One thing I should confirm, by the way, I had one of the items on the discussion with Colin was to try and establish whether there was specific, if you like, government grants that have been given to Kirklees or any other local authorities around climate change, and unfortunately to date, that may change going forward, hopefully will. To date, that hasn't been the case. So the work that Kirklees are doing is within their core budget, if you like. There isn't something that's been specifically given to them, which I think has hindered them to some degree. So hopefully that'll change going forward. But very positive. His view is one of collaboration. He was very impressed with what we're doing, with the achievements to date, with the plan, with the commitment to obviously having Michelle on board as a coordinator, and also the commitment to working with in partnership with groups within the community, because he has a strong view that initiatives like this need to be supported by the community and can't just be imposed on the community. So very good news in that regard. And as I say, I'll let Michelle say a few words, because Michelle then had a discussion with Colin, and I think his number two much more about the sort of the issue of working with them. So
Yeah.
Michelle, if you want to.
So I met, it was John Atkinson and Colin, and in fact, I ended up just talking to John a lot because Colin actually had wanted to have the call cancelled, but his secretary didn't realise that. So anyway, but what we did establish is that he said, which is music to our ears, approach us with anything, even if it sounds ridiculous and out of financially unlikely, because he will consider everything we go to him with. So that leaves us up for, especially with the fact we want to do at least one big project over the coming year, so we can approach them to see if they will actually financially support us with that. So that was the major learn that came out of that. He's very much wants to be leading the way on it. It's really important to him. He's not just a figurehead, he actually believes in it. So he's a good ally to have on board. And he also, which we've heard a lot, and well, I've heard this a lot as well, he also wants to look to us to be the people that roll it out for everyone as the guiding light of how it should be done. And so he's really keen for us to go and talk to other people. And actually that's already happening. If you weren't aware, I'm actually going to be talking to Kirk Heaton, and then they're going to roll it out into the whole area. So they've asked me to go and talk to them about what we've done. And that's going to be something that, as I said, Colin wants us to do around the whole of the Kirklees area.
Yeah, I think just picking up that issue before I open up for discussion, that issue on, if you like, a big or a flagship project, whatever we want to call it, and that's certainly something that we want to work on now, and see if it is something we can do in collaboration with Kirklees. I don't want to get too carried away in the sense of, it's great to have that offer, but what we haven't got is anything concrete, obviously. But I'm certain that offer is made, sincerely. So that means that we can put something in place where we can look at, opportunities. An example could be, for example, one I'd pick up, which we've discussed before, is some form of district ground source heating or air source, heating kind of project, which would need support from the council in terms of implementation, in terms of support, etc. I'm not saying that will be it, but that's an example of something that could be significant. Or it could be, around some of the transport work that Kath and the team are doing around developing, safe cycle routes, improve, the capital that's involved in making that happen, etc. The various bits of highways process that would have to be followed. So there's a number of things that could be picked up but I think one of the things certainly, we can talk about this as we go into the subgroups as well, is that we need to now start thinking about, a project or projects where we can see that collaboration being beneficial and ideally sort of fits in with some of the things that Kirklees are already looking at. So really positive and, good sign for the future. So with that, open up for discussion. Any questions or comments for myself or Michelle? Oh. Good. We've stunned everybody into silence, Michelle. I'm going to move on, Robert. Oh, too late. Go on, Rachel. Sorry.
That's a good question. Yeah, it sounds really positive, that relationship with Kirklees. I think that's certainly something to build on. And I think, as you say, Paul, we mustn't get too distracted by kind of a big prize of a massive project over here, which might not be delivered for several years. We need to sort of remember to sort of achieve things within the valley, whilst maybe keeping an eye on a potential big prize in the long run. So I think it sounds really good. I guess I'm conscious that it'd be tempting from Kirklees' perspective this feels a bit of a parochial thing to say, but that Michelle sort of goes out and flies the flag throughout all of Kirklees, and I just think we need to be mindful of the fact that we need Michelle's time to majority focus here, but I'm all for sharing ideas, and we'll get ideas in from other places. So I'm not trying to say we shouldn't do the things like that. I think it's great that actually the Home Valley is kind of leading the charge on that, and I think it's important that lessons are then shared across, and other people are inspired. But I'm just mindful of
Yep.
time commitments, so I think that's just something we just need to keep a bit of an eye on.
No,
Oh,
totally
don't
agree.
worry. I will be keeping an eye on that.
Yeah.
I think the idea would be his number 2, John Atkinson, would see what we're doing, and then we'd give him what we're doing, and then leave it with them to push it out. Not that I'm going to be the head going around talking to people. So that's for certain. Yeah.
Alison, I think you saw your hand go up.
Well, first of all, I was just saying, what is his job title, Colin Parr?
Colin Parr, he's Strategic Director for Environment and Climate Change.
Right, okay. And then my other question was, is he linked at all to the university? Because in our subgroup, which is land use, we've got this link to the university and whatnot, and they are seeing us as a pilot study, something that would go out to a much wider place. But it doesn't affect us because you just do the study here in the Home Valley. But I just wondered if there was a sort of a dialogue going on there as well.
I would think so, but I can't categorically say that is the case. But I know certainly there's been a strong link in the past between the university and people like Rob Dolby, Rob Walker, who was obviously portfolio holder. So I would be very surprised if it isn't. But certainly, you know, if needs be, if through your discussions, your contacts, you know, John, etc., in the university say they're not having that link, let me know, and then I can follow up with Colin. No problem.
I think they are actually. That's why I was just wondering.
I think so.
Yeah, I think that they are squaring the circle, but
yeah, I think the difference, it's the sense I get with Colin coming in, similar to David Shepherd, who's the new strategic director in terms of regeneration, is a strong sense of wanting to create collaboration and partnership rather than it being seen as it's just Kirklees Council holding on to everything. So I think that's the different approach that seems to be the case. So fingers crossed that, you know, that works. And also my impression is with both of them that they want to make things happen. You know, but you can only judge when you go forward, can you? But and Rachel, you're quite right. We need to be a little bit careful that Michelle doesn't get pulled all over the place. John, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just want to say I think it's a great that if they are prepared to sort of support the Home Valley in terms of pilot projects. If we can get Kirklees money to be spent in the valley on pilot projects that whether they're going to be used elsewhere in the Kirklees. The important thing to me is that we're actually getting money and resources spent in the valley to the benefit of our community. So if we can come up with good pilot projects, I think it's something to be welcomed that we can get Kirklees to support them.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, Matthew?
Yeah, just first of all saying well done. It's great that we've got good support from Kirklees and that sort of thing. That's lovely. In terms of sharing good practices and all the rest of it, I'm also director of Zero Carbon Yorkshire, and we are trying to get groups. So for instance, Headingley have got a livable neighbourhood plan which they're working up. So any of the things which we're doing, there's a Zero Carbon Yorkshire food group. Obviously there's a food group here. So there's a buildings group on Zero Carbon Yorkshire, and there's buildings here. So there's lots of synergy. So basically, if anybody here has got something which we can shout about, brilliant. Via Michelle, we can feed it into Zero Carbon Yorkshire and shout about what we're doing, but also the other way. If anyone's looking at doing something, there's probably someone in Leeds or Sheffield doing similar plans, and it's interesting to compare notes. Zero Carbon Yorkshire is all about trying to join people up so they can compare notes.
Well, thanks, Matthew. Yep, absolutely. Yep, okay. All right. I would just, Sarah.
Yeah, I know I'm being a bit left of field, but I was thinking about Forest Green Rovers and how ethical and green, and they're a football team that have completely working for zero carbon emissions. And I know we're in the Home Valley, but it'd be great if we could influence Huddersfield Town Football Club to have a big audit and you know, reduce their emissions somehow.
That's a good
I feel as though the Home Valley Parish Council Emergency Committee could have some weight in sort of, you know, being unanimous in you know, dare to say, you know, like banning the expansion of the Leeds Bradford Airport. I think we could be influential and step up onto a bigger level there.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Kath?
Just on that point, I think if you want an in to Huddersfield Town and the Giants, then if you've got links with the university, that would be quite a good way, because there's strong links between that. So it would be
I think it's a good. I think it's a good idea. Yeah, I think it's something, and that's something, Misha. We could, you know, I'm sure there may already be discussions going with Kirklees, but I think there's something we should follow up. Okay, I'm going to move us on because I know we've got lots of stuff that we need to go, and I know, you know, this discussion is definitely useful, but I think it takes us very much now into the subgroups and the feedback, because this is the meat of the action plan. What we want to do is run through each of the subgroups, looking at where we are with the current projects, and a view that will then take us for this year, hopefully should do in some view around budgetary spend, and also then help us when we come to looking at next year's budget as well. So if we move on to item 39, we'll come back to the actual detail that we've got in item 38 on the projects after we've gone through this. So we've got item 39, and the first subgroup, Steve, is energy. Really, we've called it energy, housing, building. That's because we've not separated them at the moment, and that's another debate. But for this evening, is clearly energy is what we're focusing on. And Steve, if you could give us an update of where you are now with your key projects at the moment.
Yeah, will do. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, first of all, I just wanted to say that in terms of the virtual events, we didn't get a chance to engage with that process as much as we would have liked to. It's great that the feedback has already been so positive, but now if we're planning another session in 3 months' time, that should give us a much better opportunity to plan that going forward. So we look forward to that.
Yep, agree.
In terms of the activities that we've been looking at specifically, then the sort of the top two priorities that we had originally identified were, first of all, preparing a booklet, an energy saving booklet. So we've made an initial draft of that. So that now needs to be developed and then of course finished and deployed. And there may be some other ideas about how we do that, given what we've just discussed about bite-sized information and making information more accessible and so forth. So I think that's an important step for us coming up now. The other main priority was to audit some of the parish council buildings, the civic centre, the Honley library, and as a second step, possibly the toilet building. The situation with coronavirus and so on has kept sort of delaying us with that. So as soon as we're ready with the priorities and everybody's comfortable with that, we can revisit that topic. I think the guys involved in the Honley Library have done a really good job, and they've given us most of the information that we need. We got some information regarding the Civic Centre. I think we're just missing a bit of up-to-date billing data from there, just as a bit of a background. And then we should be in a position to arrange that. In terms of the budgeting, there were items already included in the budget. There were some other items that we already talked about as well. We talked about potentially having some seminars for architects, builders, and those kinds of people. And again, we put a small amount in the budget for that. Given the recent move towards virtual events, maybe some of that can be revisited in more of a virtual forum, which might help with the budgeting, of course, as well. There was also an item listed for monitoring local renewables and those kinds of initiatives, and we actually allocated £1,000 in the budget for that. To be honest, I can't remember the discussions around that. I don't know whether that's still an important priority, but that was also on the list. And then also to link in with what you just said, we also did allocate potentially in the budget some money for looking at a potential case study for low carbon heating, whether that was heat pumps or whatever other idea we could come up with. Just an interesting point as well, by the way. Right now, we're probably a little bit behind in terms of the schedule, but there is actually money available from central government right now for low carbon heating projects. I don't think we're advanced enough to have anything to actually put on the table, but presumably those kinds of funding rounds will continue into next year as well. But specifically for public sector bodies, there is money available from central government for those kind of things. So that's pretty much where we're up to from the energy working group point of view.
Thanks, Steve. Just on the brochure, I know I've seen the draft and that, and I know Michelle, you picked that up, but obviously you haven't been able to do much at the moment. But have we got a view how long it'll take us to get that into a position where we're ready to publish it, Michelle?
I've put the quotes out to the designers, but there's a big chunk that's got to be done, which is me going through it all and editing it and making sure that it's right. So that was one of the other jobs that I just haven't had a chance to get to yet, but I will. So
are we thinking this side of Christmas, or is it sort of New Year, just as a rough?
It can be done as soon as it's been edited and we're all happy with it. It can be printed. Well, it's not even about printing, it's getting it designed. So it could be done this side of Christmas, as long as the people that we're asking to do the design, it could be this side of Christmas.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, it would be, it's just again, it would be an opportunity if we could do. It's not the highest priority, but it's that more or less there, isn't it, as you said, and it's something we can get out then.
Yeah.
Sorry, Michelle first. Go on then, Rachel.
I was going to say, just to address what Steve said about bite-sized pieces, each of those pages becomes a bite-sized piece, because we're likely to be giving people the opportunity to download it rather than as a whole book. So therefore that fits into that. Sorry.
Yeah, Rachel?
I was going to say, thinking of energy efficiency and having a booklet, it feels like quite a New Year thing to me. Because it's a bit of an opportunity to, there's that whole kind of, New Year, new approach, new resolutions, that sort of thing. So personally, I think if it came out in January rather than before Christmas, it wouldn't get lost in the, well, I would say the joy of Christmas. I think it would be a slightly different Christmas this year, but
we hope.
It feels like a kind of you could sell it on the back of a New Year thing.
I think that's a really good idea, actually, because it's a new start to a new year, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, so I think the energy thing's great. I'm just looking at the kind of list. I know we're not specifically talking about the budget, but I'm conscious it sounds as if the kind of low carbon heating project isn't something that's going to get beyond the sort of developing feasibility, thinking about ideas stage in the next few months, possibly not even in this financial year. So I think we just need to be mindful of that moving forwards. And
I agree.
Similarly, well, it sounds like the audit of buildings could be done this year, subject to access. And I'm assuming an audit therefore also makes recommendations on viable solutions, how much they cost and what they'd achieve. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. And timing wise on that, it's not that bad, because the thing is, I think with the recommendations from the audit, those recommendations don't necessarily have to be funded through the Climate Emergency Committee, because some of those could well be just simply, done through our normal budgets, or maybe, as Steve said, maybe able to access external funds for that as well. But I think that for me, the two key items that we should be able to deliver before the end of the year would be well, we call it brochure. It's more than the brochure. It's an online communication on energy efficiency and the audit. And I think if those are the two key things. And as you say, Rachel, I think the broader and bigger project around looking at something, whether it's heat pumps, ground source, whatever it is something that'll go into next year. But that could well be, as I said earlier on, maybe that could be something that becomes linked with Kirklees as well. So I think that's certainly, I'd agree that would be the way forward on that. Steve, in terms of the costs around, sorry Julie, I'll be there now a sec. In terms of the costs on the audit, do we need to, well, what are the costs that we've got that are projected in terms of that? We put money in the budget, but it sounds like quite a bit of that work's been done already.
We, for the audit, we allocated 5k for that. I would hope we would spend a bit less than that, but we've still got to firm that up. The work that's been done is all the background work to prepare for that.
Okay, I understand. Okay, so we can discuss that separately then, because that'll have to go through our normal processes of identifying, the spec and then tenders, etc. Okay, fine. Judith, sorry, you had your hand up. Judith, yep. Oop, you're on mute, Judith. You're muted. Yeah, no, still. Oh, yep. Okay, we can hear.
Yeah.
Really good. Yeah, I'm going back many years since now, but both me and my husband were very interested in all this solar power, ground source heat, all these sort of things that were going on. But then, and it still is, a very highly priced commodity, by where the ordinary, normal, what I would call just a standard person that lives in the Home Valley, that's not neither rich nor poor, but nevertheless does not have any source of benefits, cannot get these things because there isn't the money. If I wanted to have a ground source heat installation put here, I would honestly like to think how much that would have cost. And at my age, and at a lot of people's ages, where possibly they can actually, to a certain extent, we are what we call pound, no, is it pound rich or some, anyhow, whatever it is, you've got to think that people have got to be able to afford these things. Mm-hmm. It's all right going on to having all these studies for this and that and the other, but if people can't afford them, then unless they're on benefits, and people that are on benefits still can't afford them, because I don't think they're going to pay out benefits for having ground source heat pumps put in. I mean, I get lots of people that ring me up on a weekly basis. Oh, we're here from the energy efficiency company here. Have you got double glazing? Yeah, how long have we had it? Have we got, what sort of a boiler have you got? And and then the next question is, oh well, it could need replacing, could all that? So well, possibly. The next question is, are you on any benefits? No, we're not on any benefits. So therefore they say, oh, I'm sorry, we can't be of help. Now they're not going to encourage people to be spending a lot of money on all this equipment just for the few.
That's I totally agree with that. And what we've tried to do in the information that we've put together is really put a systematic planning, because, for example, it's no good putting a heat pump in if you haven't insulated your house, if you haven't stopped the drafts, if you don't have decent windows or curtains or whatever. So it's really a whole range of things, from seep and cheap and simple measures through to at some point people are going to have to think about the low carbon heating, but I agree it's prohibitively expensive at the moment, and maybe in time there'll be some more substantial support from government. Maybe let's hope, but that shouldn't stop us
there
right
is
now
support.
from doing something.
Sorry, there is support now, but it's only for a chosen few. And that
Yeah, you
to
have
me,
to have the money available yourself up front. I agree. Yeah.
Sarah,
agreed.
oh, sorry, Steve. Sorry, go on, Sarah. Oh, you just muted yourself now, Sarah.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
now.
Is the Home Valley population roughly 27,000?
Yeah, sounds about right. Yeah.
Why can't every home just be persuaded to join Ecotricity, or a supplier that uses wind source form of energy? Surely that would be a much quicker way of bringing down, doing something really effective quite quickly.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, go on, Steve. Go on, Steve.
I think that's a really important thing, and quite often now, a lot of these energy companies who are offering the lowest tariffs are actually on those green tariffs anyway. But the problem comes around, not so much around electricity, it comes around heating and gas, and there's not much green gas around. So that's where the problem lies at the moment. But I mean, again, it's a big topic, but if you talk about heat pumps, of course, all you're doing is converting energy from gas to electric. If you still use the same amount of energy, electric's about 4 times the price of your gas, so you won't save any money. So you have to do it in the right way by insulating it. And also, actually, technically, I mean, Francis isn't here, thank goodness, but with heat pumps, there are still a lot of technical issues that need to be properly taken on board, and not just kind of throw in any old heat pump and hope it's going to work. It's not a simple exercise.
Thanks, Steve. I'm going to stop at that stage. Go on, Judith. Go on. Finally, go on.
When we started developing and doing our house, we went across to another country actually to see how they did with theirs, because we were quite interested in keeping our costs to a minimum as what we could. So we came back to England and we put all triple glazing in our house, and I'm talking about just shy of 40 years since. So our house has had all this triple glazing, and when you tell one of these companies, well, I'm sorry, but we're triple glazed, then they don't believe it. Anyhow, we are triple glazed, and we were triple glazed, and we still are triple glazed. But we put our house, hopefully, to the standard that it was, where it was extremely well insulated. We followed all Kirklees guidelines, and it was surprising then how the difference is then to what it is now, because then there was no such thing. Well, they weren't happy at building a timber framed house. Now it's all well encouraged, but if that had have happened then probably we would have had a lot lower carbon emissions if we'd have, instead of the building with stone and breeze block type things.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you've got the triple glaze and you're obviously doing a good job there. I'm really conscious of time, and I'm sorry, I don't want to stop this discussion, but I know we're going to run over if we don't at this stage, because we need to go through the other groups. Thanks. I think the key thing is there isn't one route to achieving this, as we've all just, and I think this discussion has just shown that. And I think, the example that Judith came up with in terms of what she's done in her house and what other people can do fits into what you're saying, Sarah, in terms of what we can encourage people to do in terms of changing behaviours, in terms of changing suppliers. But at the same time, we still need to investigate other areas, because we know that we're going to get to the point where we can't continue to use gas boilers in our houses going forward. So that's good. Thanks, Steve. Can we move on to transport? So Kath and Matthew, actually. So if you could update us, Go on, Kath, if you want to go first.
So if I start, right, to say, really over the last, well, since the last meeting, I've been really engaging with the cycling community, put it that way. So I think, and also getting to grips with actually the detail of the transport plan, but despite that, I still misunderstood some issues around the budget. So, but presumably we can pick that up later on. Anyway, in a nutshell, the transport policy really is about getting people out of their cars and either walking, cycling, or onto public transport, or into clean vehicles, so electric vehicles at the moment. Now, because COVID has a huge impact on public transport, we've really parked that for the time being. So it's not that we don't want to advance the use of public transport, because given our geography, actually, it's going to be an absolute key plank to the transport achieving reduce the transport carbon. But there's something about being sensible, and there's no point trying to persuade people to get on buses just at the moment. So that has some impact. In terms of the active transport side of things, then really what we need and want to do, and what the action plan reflects, is that really we want to encourage people to walk and cycle, and we want to enable them to do that. Over the work we've been doing recently has been really on the looking at what is available to encourage. And the reality is there's a really good and established cycling community and a lot of cycling resources. And therefore what we need to be doing as far as that's concerned is linking people who are interested in cycling or starting to use cycling instead of cars to the resources that are available. And so the work Michelle's doing about the Facebook page, having a resource repository is the key thing. And what we've done is recruited a couple of keen environmentally aware cyclists to the working group so that we can just make sure that we're not duplicating work and that we pull in the resources and the opportunities and the knowledge that they have. So that's really where the encouraging cycling is the work is being done. The key thing really, and the important thing then, is because I personally wasn't aware of that, and also when I just looked around, it wasn't terribly visible. So I made the assumption that these things weren't there. So of course, always test one's assumptions to find that that's not the case. But the issue is people do not cycle much in the Home Valley. There are people, it's a very popular destination for leisure cycling. So keen cyclists come and whiz up Home Moss. But actually, when you stop and you look at how many people use their bikes as a mode of transport, it's really low, actually. And therefore, there's work to be done to both understand why that is, but actually, the key thing is because our roads are horrifying for cycling, really. And so there is some, now we know that River Home Connections are engaging with the idea of a cycle route between Huddersfield and Home Firth or possibly Home Bridge, which we want to fully support. But I think we have to be realistic about when that is likely to deliver, and it's not going to be in the short term, just because it's not an easy thing to do. So I think what I'm saying here is that I think the quick fixes about cycling are well on the way. All the things that were mentioned about helping people know about cycling, to get bikes, to be able to get training for bikes, even cycle racks parking are much more available than I had at first thought. So much of that's in place. Might want to do more, but there's a good network available who can deliver all of that. What we need to acknowledge is if we want to enable people, and particularly children, to cycle, then we have to start looking at safer routes. And that leads us in, and if we start thinking about it we could start thinking about it in terms of Home Firth and the sort of 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile radius from the centre of Home Firth, because they're the sorts of journeys that we would want people to think about swapping out of their cars. Only the keen, Lycra Brigade, are likely to be doing the 30, 40 mile commutes by cycle, but it is a reasonable goal to try and get people to do the shorter distances. But they're unlikely to do it when they have to wrestle and compete with the plebeian lorries, you know, squeezing through the narrow areas. And so it's about, so I just want to flag that up really, because that's not a quick fix, and it's not going to be a cheap fix, but it's a key point if we want to get people out of their cars for the shorter journeys, and we know a lot of journeys are shorter. So that's what I've been doing. The other area of work is the getting people into clean vehicles, and that's over to Matthew to talk about, that's his bag. What I would just like to say then is that in terms of the budgeting, really the areas of work we want to be able to carry forward in the next 6 months is really the electric vehicle stuff that Matthew's about to talk about, and then really looking at perhaps some of the underpinning work we need to do if we want to do the bigger work around cycling. Okay,
thanks,
over
Kath.
to you, Matthew.
Yep, thank you. Go on, Matthew.
Hey, thanks. So EV charging and really EV on street charging for residents. Anybody who has a private driveway, then charging is very straightforward. You stick an outside 13 amp plug in and you're away, which is what we did. So we've been using electric cars for 10 years. I'm just going to talk about why EV charging, what it is, where it needs to be, and what we need to do next. So why, basically, if you think about a mobile phone and an electric car, they are very similar. Mobile phone, you plug it in every night. And the reason you do that is because you then don't have to worry about it running out halfway through the day. And an EV is exactly the same. An awful lot of EVs, particularly the early ones, have a range of about 60 miles. They might say they've got 90 miles, but it's about 60 miles in reality. 60 miles is absolutely fine for everything. It can get you to Sheffield, it can get you to Leeds, get you to Barnsley, where you have to work, as long as you are full. So if you don't have off-street parking, you will only buy an EV car if you can guarantee that you can park it and charge it outside your house. So what we're trying to do is basically make it possible for residents on street to charge their car. Oxford have been doing a trial. So Oxford spent about £1 million on doing a whole bunch of trials, lampposts, car parks and resident parking. Lampposts and car parks are good and it's nice to have, but that will not let you buy a car. You only buy a car if you can park it and charge it outside your house. Oxford did that by installing what they call pavement gullies. So it is a gully across the pavement and you put your lead in that and plug in. I have done that as well. A gully by itself is fine, but it's not really practical. When it's raining, snowing, there's issues about tripping over the thing. So what we're looking at is a gully plus a bollard. So you have a bollard on the edge of the pavement and you have a gully, which is an extension lead from the house to the bollard. So it's the resident's private bollard. I have spoken to some utility contractors, so these are the people who are used to digging up pavements, and he would like to give us some rough costs for doing this, but he would like to know where. So I'll come on to that in a tick. In terms of guaranteeing a space, what we're looking at is in the same way that you can have a resident's disabled space marked, we're looking at having a resident's EV, and all of the highways legislation that you need for marking the road, the the transport permits and that sort of thing. The same applies to EV charging, or it can apply to EV residence charging as it does for disabled residence charging. The disabled residence parking are not done under the very heavy high weights code. We know how much it's going to cost to mark out the roads. So it costs about £150 to mark out a road. Costs something like £500 overall to have one of these posts installed. What we would like to know now is, first of all, to get some better costs from the utility companies, which means they would like to know a couple of roads that we might be interested in looking at. So what I would like from people here is, either today or later on, are there a couple of roads that we think might be sensible for a trial? One of them might be Dunford Road. That's the sort of thing. So it's a road which has terraced housing on. People are likely to want to have EVs. The next step would be for us to get rough costs from the utility company to say, well, this is roughly how much it would cost to do. We can then draft a letter, which would obviously come back to the committee, which would be circulated to the people in that road saying, if you're interested in an EV because it's green for the planet and everything else, we would like to help you make that possible. It's going to cost you some money. This is how much it's going to cost. Are you interested? And then we would be looking for 2 people to take forward as a pilot. So basically what we're wanting money for is to put 2 of these systems in to see the practicalities and the difficulties and all the rest of it. And that's us.
Thanks, Matthew. Interesting. That, I think that definitely sounds like an early discussion with Kirklees as well, and with Highways around how we do that. But I don't think that's insurmountable. We can certainly set something up to have that discussion. But yeah, Trevor. Yes, Trevor, go on. Can you hear me? Oh, you're still on mute, Trevor. And I think you're frozen. The joys of technology. Oh, are you back? Hang on. You're still on mute. While Trevor's trying to get himself unfrozen there. John, do you want to jump in? And then I can bring Trevor in after.
I was very interested to hear, very pleased to hear about the sort of the EV project and the sort of active cycling support. Some of the things a couple of things to suggest on the EV side is that one of the things I'm aware of actually is that one of the biggest things of not actually people moving to clean vehicles is the lack of infrastructure as well as a car. I'm aware of 2 projects which are trying to go for funding for, I think, for small pilot projects to provide infrastructure, and it's something I think this committee could support. One, for example, is to do with servicing of EV vehicles and the lack of appropriate garages around here, and the second is actually around it's actually specific testing, Matthew, qualification of people who are authorised to do various testing. And the second one is actually around EV bikes. One of the reasons why people don't actually cycle around here is not only on the commuter side, it's not only the distance, it's also the hills. But EV bikes certainly have a role here. And you know, one of our things what we've heard is that you can cycle anywhere in the Home Valley if you've got an EV bike. But one of the problems is, if you think about it, there's very few bike shops around here that are really geared up for effective support, servicing and dealing with bikes. I know somebody who's actually had to go to Barnsley to find an appropriate sort of bike shop to be able to sort of buy a bike. So that is the sort of thing, the infrastructure side, rather than the bikes themselves, is something that I think the sort of this committee and its work could actually support.
Okay.
Because it's a key thing for people who want to have these newer technologies, actually having appropriate infrastructure to support them, as well as having the actual units themselves.
Thanks, John. Oh, I think, was Trevor still frozen? Yeah, he is. Yeah. Oh. Alison.
Yes.
And
that
my,
working?
No, hang on. Trevor's, bear with me, Alison. Can you hear me?
No.
Can you hear us, Trevor?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yep, go on. You're on.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Oh,
yep.
lovely, lovely. Just one or 2 points, if I may. I initially just wanted to mention the long.
You've gone.
We're obviously our very close neighbours, and with regard to all the that come out of the transport, comfort, electric vehicles, obviously walking and biking, and all things that Peak Park are very much involved with, and we can benefit a lot from their expertise, no doubt, in that area. Looking at what's being said with regard to our road system for cycling, I agree that our quite dangerous with regard to cycling, or certainly can be a lot of them. With regard to tools for repairs of cycling, what we have outside our home, which is in Woodhead Road, Hinchcliffe Mill, we have a tool stand outside with associated tools. They're available 24 hours a day. I hasten to add the tools are fastened to the frame, but everything is there for any cyclist to stop, do repairs, mend punctures, the pump and everything there. That's for public use any time of the day. We've put in a electric point for the electric cycles of this world. I did charge with them, of course. We have car charger of the house. We have a small parcel of land, and we have a charger, a proper piece of equipment to a post just off-road to the back of our house, available for anybody to come and use as they so wish. We get the power from solar panels on supply a charging unit, which isn't costing anybody anything, and we don't make a charge for that. We offer secure storage for the walkers of the world who come to the reservoirs at the top of the home bridge there. People can leave a bike with us and we'll lock it up in safe security in our basement. Those are some of the things we've tried to do for the people of the Upper Home Valley. We do get a lot of support, and a lot of people use our facilities. And with regard to properties with car ownership, Woodhead Road, a busy road. Every terrace house on this road would appear to have either 2 or 3 cars. So the idea of a designated area outside the property, in other words, saving an area for the individual parking outside their home. I don't see great problems with that in an area such as where we are. And looking at other things we've tried to do, we do a lot of welcoming walkers, hikers, and what have you, to come into our home, have a rest, get dried off, whatever. Those are the sort of things that we can do at cost us nothing.
Okay.
And it's a pleasure to do it.
Thanks, Trevor. That's great. I think it's a very good example to others as well. Again, I'm going to bring that part of the agenda to stop, because looking at time, we've still got lots to go through, and we definitely have to go through the budget. So, just John, can I ask you on waste and recycling, and obviously Caroline, if you could just give us an overview on where you are at the moment and your thoughts. So I don't know who wants to jump in first, you, John, or Caroline?
think if Karen wants to pick up, because the big thing for us, I suppose, is that the waste fountain, the water fountain has been done, but we haven't, as a group, we haven't really had to contribute much to that. But it's one of the successes in terms of the budget. And the other, I think, is the repair cafe, which Caroline has got going. So perhaps, if Caroline, do you want to pick that one up?
Hi. Yeah, the repair cafe has only actually been able to operate at the Home for Tech once because of lockdown. So it's a bit sad really, but nevertheless, we have done quite a few repairs. So the first one was actually quite successful. We had 4 people come along with a selection of different things. We've fixed the majority of them, but we've done quite a few fixes at home. We've done 2 strimmers, 1 electric, 1 petrol. We've done 2 electric hedge trimmers, 2 lawn mowers, a lopper, a jean zip, a bread maker, an iron, a printer, an anorak zip, and a laptop. So we're doing a fair amount. We've had a failure on an Amazon Fire, tablet. Obviously it had a drop, and when you get inside these things, we actually had to buy a whole set of micro screwdrivers to get inside the blooming thing, but the connectors are just fried. So that's really our first big failure. But anyway, there's a lot of interest in it, and Kirk Burton actually contacted me to say they were very interested in how we operate. We've also, thanks to HOP sending out a newsletter, I managed to get another volunteer. Somebody's had a life in electronics and electrical engineering. So there's 3 really good chaps, ready to go as soon as we can reopen. Currently, we're just trying to fix somebody's little musical merry-go-round. So, we're doing what we can, really. So we're keeping a few bits out of landfill anyway.
That's brilliant. I think it's great initiative, and actually on a wider sense, certainly Kirklees are now starting to understand the benefit of the circular economy in terms of the whole issue of fixing recycling in that regard, rather than quite often when we think of recycling, it's turning it into something else. That's great. And obviously, is there now in terms of as soon as the lockdown's finished, you can relaunch as well. And I think for the waste and recycling areas, clearly the water fountain, absolutely has been key. The repair cafe also very important. But as we said last time, I know, John, a lot of the things you wanted to do have been hindered because of where we are in terms of lockdown. So hopefully that'll start to relax a little bit. Is there anything else, John, that you wanted to pick up on that?
Just 2 things quickly to sort of mention. One is that we've been involved in something recently about sort of furniture recycling. It's a Kirklees wide initiative, being getting various groups involved, particularly coming from the social dimension, which is really by housing, and something from Slough called the Furniture Bank. We're actually recycling used furniture into homes where they're needed. We're very early discussions, but there's been looking at what that could be in our area and how that might be applied. The second thing is, obviously, we have started this the waste strategy review and consultation by Kirklees General. So the whole thing is now in the melting pot, and people are being asked to do it. I wanted to ask, from the point of view of the parish council, whether you would be, or whether the parish normally puts in a response as a group to the consultation, and whether it's something that we could look at as a group action as distinct from an individual response to consultation.
That's good point. I don't know, Rachel. We've not discussed putting in a group response as far as I can recall.
I don't think we have discussed doing it. Certainly, I was aware of it and I've responded personally. I think the only challenge would be, because it covers lots of different, because there's a lot about preferences, isn't there, of the type of bins that you want outside your property. So it's quite difficult to have a specific position on it. I think we've, personally, I sort of feel as if the parish council could maybe welcome the fact that there is this waste strategy and encourage, we could maybe promote the fact that people should take the opportunity to give their view, because I think people will have very different views of what's suitable outside their own property. So I'm not sure we could have a collective answer, but I think probably the parish council should try and trumpet it and encourage people to take part.
Thanks. Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. Caroline?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a heads up. Somebody has set up a Home Valley or Home Firth Free Cycle Facebook page, and they seem to be fixing up lots of people with things they no longer want and giving them to other people within the valley, which I think is an absolutely brilliant idea. The other thing is, I think as a group, we really should get behind, and everybody should share anything that has about buying local or supporting your local businesses, because you know they're all closed. Meanwhile, all the big boys, the Ranges and everything like that, are opening up, even though they barely sell any food or essentials, if you like. So it's going to be a very lean Christmas for a lot of our shopkeepers. But apart from anything else, buying local really does help. The money stays in the local economy. Those people spend their money in local pubs and restaurants and dress shops and whatever. So I think we should really get behind buying local, and particularly food supplies. Buy meat from a local farm shop or what have you. It's probably been raised just down the road. So
yeah, absolutely agree, and it's something we could look to publicize as well, Michelle. I think that's okay. Let's move on to agriculture, otherwise we're going to run out of time. Alison, do you want to bring us up to date with the work that I know you and Andrew and others have been doing on this?
I'll say a bit, and Andrew can say a bit as well.
Yeah.
That what I've been focusing on mostly is putting in a bid for £10,000. And the thing that's been quite frustrating about this is that they have moved the deadline for the application twice. So now it's the end of November. So we've hung fire, we haven't actually submitted it, but John's been helping me put things together. But the bid is to enable us to pay for some professional mappers and data analysts to make a landowner's atlas for the Upper Home Valley, so that we know what the land uses of places, but also more importantly, we can take something to farmers and landowners so that they can actually have a conversation about what's going on. And the actual mapping can be really sophisticated, can put in what if scenarios about the future use of land. Andrew's got quite strong feelings about this. He's been concentrating on this a lot and doing a study of his own farm. But that's what I've done at the moment. I've been in touch with Yorkshire Wildlife Trust as well about getting people to do environmental surveys, but they don't have anyone that can do that. I've twice now contacted Yorkshire Wildlife and they don't have the staff to do things, but they pointed me back to the university. So we've got links with the university and with the geography department for sort of more on the ground mapping and auditing, which we're planning to do. The scheme's sort of a 9 to 12 month project, but we need to just press send on this blooming application and just see if we can get the thing going. While I was talking to the two people who are mapping, they're also looking at bigger projects, which is, what Michelle was saying about, looking further out into Kirklees and West Yorkshire. But they are also putting in funding bids as well. One of the data analysts said that he was putting in a bid to Innovate UK, which is about environmental work. But they're going to use the Upper Home Valley, our bit, for their model. So that actually helps us as well. So it feels quite exciting, except for the fact we haven't actually got our first base. We're just pending. Andrew's going frantic. He's been doing his own audit. He's got fed up waiting for everyone to get cracking. So but that's where we are. And so we've kind of made the links. So we've got 2 people at the university, 2 professional mappers, and sort of links between them. And I do think they are actually talking to Kirklees as well, which is why I raised the question at the beginning whether Colin said anything about this project. So
Not specifically, no, but then we didn't go through the details of all the projects anyway. So you know, we had more of an overview discussion.
yeah.
In terms of pressing the button to go at this stage, Alison, is there any of that sort of seed money that, you know, from our budget that could help, or you know, obviously we haven't got the 10,000, but in terms of just to move things forward, is there anything that we can do?
Well, I wrote to Michelle actually and said that, you know, the £1,000 that you'd allocated for land use, it would pay for a landowner's atlas. You know, if you had some other money, you could match it like that, and that could be the tool with which we engage with people. Or it could pay for 2 or 3 engagement. Because of COVID, it's really difficult. The major premise of this, that we would have had a big group meeting somewhere, is obviously not going to happen. So the £1,000 could also be producing these land maps and then putting them in public places, you know, a village hall or a library, so that people could actually have a look at them in the way that the traffic calming thing was done. The civic hall. So 3 engagements like that would also be about the same cost. So, you know, the thing is, chicken and egg, isn't it? You know, we haven't got the land maps.
That's what I'm saying. You need that anyway to start. Well, obviously you're working with Michelle anyway, so we won't go into all the detail now, but I think, you know, from my view, you know, I know it's frustrating for you, but it is fantastic progress in where we are, and I really think it will move forward, because I think now the people are involved, I think it will move forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
To be honest, people, although no one is being paid at the moment, the people who are involved professionally are doing the groundwork.
Yeah, sure.
They're not just waiting; they're actually doing stuff. So
yeah. Oh, that's great, brilliant, Alison. Thanks. Andrew, you're sitting there patiently. You've listened to everybody else, so be good to hear from you.
Yeah, like Alison says, they have made a start on the mapping. We do think it is very important, so we can identify what sort of land we have got in the area and try and identify what it will suit better as well, because even within the Orme Valley, we've got different soil types, we've got obviously different directions the land's pointing in. It's all suitable for different things. We want to make sure that we're getting the right thing in the right place. Where I am in Oakbridge, if we were to try and grow crops up here, it's going to be really difficult. Whereas if we go down to Ongley, we might be able to identify land down there which will be much more suitable for it. Now, whether we can get landowners to go into something like that, that's a different story altogether, but at least we'll be targeting right people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, like Alison said, I have done a carbon survey on his own farm using Farm Carbon Toolkit or something, I think it's called. And it's really, really difficult. It's difficult to fill in, and it's difficult to, when you start researching into it all, I'm just getting all sorts of different figures for the same thing. And that's going to be really hard. And as we start to approach landowners and asking them to do what we think we should be doing, we need some consistency within all these figures. But looking at what we've done, what I've done now, compared to where we were a few years ago when we were fairly intensive with what we're doing, we have actually dropped our emissions from just short of 8 tonnes per hectare to 3. But we've also increased as carbon sequestration by a lot as well. So there is a way forward for where farming can change and still be within livestock without moving into something different. But again, it's just knowing exactly what we should be doing.
Well,
one of the biggest problems I am finding is knowing what carbon neutral is for the area. Nobody seems to know what that is.
As you can imagine, we've had many discussions on that one, Andrew. I won't get into that discussion tonight because we just haven't got time. But you're right, it is.
It would be handy if we had a target.
Yeah. Well, we've got some work. I think John is probably the best person to talk to you about that. So John,
I have had some information from him.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing. But I think it's great, and I think the work that you've been doing. We've seen the work that Longleaf Farm is doing as well. And I think you got two great examples between you and Jimmy of farmers who are really taking this on board and looking at what can be done, as you said, to help achieve that target. So that's brilliant. Yeah.
I will just say one thing: for the figures I have had off John for what he thinks we're aiming for, we're doing what we're doing here now. It can be done.
Yeah,
it can be done.
Fantastic. Thank you both for that. I'm really chuffed in terms of where we moved that forward, and it was one of the areas where we didn't have any sort of linkage really. So that's been great progress. Many thanks. I'm going to take us back now because we've got 30 minutes and we've got to now take on board what we've just talked about and look at our budget for this year. I think very simple sort of report first of all is in terms of spend. Our spend, and I'm just looking at what our spend is so far, is 4,000, just under 5,000, isn't it? Rich, I think at the moment. So it's 4,000. So have I got that right? Yep. Actual to date, 4,940. So out of our budget of 46,000, we spent just shy of 5,000. So if we look at on the agenda, it refers us to a number of documents, and document D, or appendix D, whichever we want to describe it, talks about the project plans for this year. So Rich has pulled this together. I think it's a really good piece of work, actually.
No, that's Michelle's pulled that together.
Oh, I'm sorry, Michelle. My apologies. I'm in trouble now, Rich. That's it now. I am in such big trouble.
But I'd like to say thank you to everybody else for giving me the figures to be able to pull it together. So
I'm gonna, if that being the case, I'm gonna shut up and let Michelle take us through this then.
Well, I think it's actually, I think each person has to look at their bit and talk us through it because I've just compiled it from that and I don't know.
Right. Well, let me just give the lead on this. And so we've already talked about environmental land use, and as you just said, the £1,000 there. So for this year, there is the potential, if this can move, if you can get things moving, there is the potential there of using that £1,000, and we can use that in a number of ways. But at this point, I think it's fair to say, Alison, we can't do that until the actual project commences, can we? So we are completely dependent on that. So that may well be something that we call on, but at this stage, I think Rich is a fair comment to say we can't confirm that. Rachel?
I was just going to ask, I mean, obviously it's a bid for £10,000, but is there any opportunity, I don't know, maybe it's not cost effective to do it, but to break the area into two halves so that you can do the mapping of, say, the upper end of the Home Valley, which obviously covers Andrew's area, before doing the other half?
Well, Andrew's Farm is the pilot for the mapping, but it will extend over the upper Home Valley. So the costing is broken down, Rachel. So we've got the actual cost of the budget is about 21,000, but a lot of it's volunteer or pro bono work. So we're asking for the 10,000 plus the one from Parish Council, and then you can see the different chunks. But it isn't a half and half project, I don't think. It's a more sequential thing that you do some data entry and analysis, and you test the model, and then you move on and you work your way through, and you come out at the bottom with a landowner's atlas and recommendations and things. So,
and sorry, then because you referred to a bid for £10,000, who's that bid to?
It's the Bright Green Community Fund,
right?
The Hot Wind Fund, and I'm doing it through One Community. You know, the overarching Kirtley's thing.
And Alison's not trying to influence anybody else on this call who has anything to do with that fund, of course.
Absolutely not.
I'm saying no more on that. Okay, so on energy, we move on. We have talked about this again within this document. We've talked about the 5,000, which is still allocated there for support for the audit of the building, and I personally, and I think Steve said this, I don't think we'll use all of that, but I think, you know, we should be looking to certainly doing as much of that work as possible, and maybe we'll be able to complete it all for less than that. But I think that still stands certainly for this year, and the booklet. So I think on energy, the combination there of Rich, of the 7,000 still certainly stands for this year. I believe the other three items will move on. What do you think, Steve? Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. The 7,000 for this year is good, and the other items we can defer into the next year.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that makes perfect sense. Okay, so that then takes us to transport, which has now got lots more detail, which is excellent in that regard. So the first thing we talked about there, well, what Matthew was talking about is around and putting together a pilot for this on-street charging, EV charge points, and there's a combination there of number of issues which come to 3,300, 3,000. Yeah, it's about £4,000 looking at that roughly, in rough sense between that activity. Again, I think this is a great idea. I do think though we need to do a bit of work, Matthew, and discussions with Kirklees to find out the art of the possible. And it may be, until we have that discussion, I think that's it. We don't know when or how we can do that going forward. I have a distinct feeling that might be something that goes into next year, but that's Caroline? Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I know I've seen the lamppost chargers in Peckham when I've been down there, and I just wonder if it'd be interesting to try and get an idea from other authorities that have already done, you know, use this sort of technology, what kind of usage they get if you just have them in a random, you know, on a street where there's appropriate you know, opportunities for people to park and charge.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, the obvious step is the discussion with Kirklees, but then is to understand what they've gathered or what they can gather from other authorities. So I think we can do that in partnership, Caroline, definitely. And I think it's, you know, it is a really good idea, and it's something we talked about. John will remember, because it came up very early on in the consultation on the action plan. So it certainly was something that people were very interested in. So I'm certainly would want to see it stay within the budget. I'm not convinced that we'll be able to do that fully, but I might be surprised, but I'm not convinced we could do it fully. But what we could do, I think, is all the preparation work, the research, and understand the cost implications. I think the bike racks is an interesting one, and I don't know, Kath, what was the thought process on that? Oh, I'll bring you in, Rachel, in a second. Just ask Kath on that.
The remainder of this really was, as I say, I wasn't exactly sure what was required for this meeting. So this is all projects that would account for the money that had been allocated against transport. But because we can't do some of it because of COVID, that's why it's shuffled round. And I mean, Matthew and Greta may wish to say something, but I would say these are all things that would help, and that would want to take forward, but how much we'd actually spend before March. And the other thing is the idea. So say, for example, the 2,000 around bike racks would be, it costs, let me just think, 3, so that would buy 6-10 bike racks, or a contribution to the costs of far more, because the idea is to get other people to either pay or at least be able to make a contribution. So that's quite a generous sum for bike racks. But it was while I was looking at this from the point of view of, well, what could the 13,000 go against? So it really, I mean, I also come from a background where if you don't spend the money before the deadline, it disappears into some pit. So
Yeah, sure.
I know that's what I mean by not fully understanding what was needed here.
Yeah. No, this is absolutely fine, actually, Kath. I think this is good work. Sorry, Rachel wanted to come in, and then I think Alison.
Yeah, I was going to say Alison was first. If she wants to go first, and then I'll go.
You're on mute, Alison.
Mine was a cheeky interjection, actually, about monies, because I was a bit like Catherine. No, if money's not spent, does it disappear? Because we need money for our land use project. If you're not using it, put it into the land use project.
Well, this is why I was asking the question earlier on. After this meeting, this will give us the ability, myself, Michelle and Rich, to have a look at the overall budget and see then if there's something that can be moved around. You know, there isn't anything that we've discussed this evening that's frivolous or not needed. So in that sense, it's something then we can work on. And we've got the ability, Rich, haven't we? There's another, you know, we won't have a committee meeting before January, but there's another council meeting if we need to do something around there in terms of authorization as well. But there shouldn't be any issue. So yes, that's why we're trying to do this
The
tonight.
money gone if it's not used by March.
It's not. We could build in. It could go into reserves, I guess, can't it? And Rich, but what we want to do is not hastily spend money. We want the money is there to be used to actually get things moving. So the issue for me is much more about making things happen. The money is there to facilitate that. So I'm kind of focusing on making things happen. So if we can make things happen before the end of
we're ready to go.
Fine. Well, that's exactly what I was asking earlier on. Okay, fine. Rachel?
Yeah, I think thinking of the budget is more a case of saying, well, if we realistically don't think things are going to be spent this year, then that's more to influence what we then budget for next year. So money doesn't disappear as such, because the parish council has raised that money, but it will affect how much is appropriate to ask for next year. So I think we just need to be mindful of that. One thing, a comment I just had about the EV charging points is obviously the project. I think Paul is right. There's going to have to be discussions with Kirklees, and personally I think the big attraction actually for people, say on the Dunford Road, of going forward with the pilot would be that they did get a dedicated space. So there's quite an incentive there to use. But I'm just conscious of particularly what Trevor was saying about having a charging point on his house. Is there, and forgive me if there is already, but is there kind of already a map or local awareness of where all the places are that you can charge your car and your bike? And is that something which we can promote so people are aware of that?
Yeah.
And as I say, forgive me if that already exists. And I've now completely forgotten what the other thing was I was going to say. Oh yes, air pollution sensors that I can see on the list of transport. I just wondered, I mean, that strikes me as something that we could, I assume that's about understanding what the level of air pollution currently is, so that then moving forward we can track how it changes. Is that something that, is there anything already in place through Kirklees? Because if there isn't, and this is something we could push, that strikes me as something we could spend this year.
Yeah, well, certainly in terms of the team that deals with this within Kirklees, sort of, yeah, they do surveys, and actually our vice chair is a member of that team, but at the moment he's on sabbatical. I know is so away from the team, but yes, there is a team that does that carries out surveys. However, as far as I'm aware, there isn't anything that's set up at the moment. And I'm not aware of any plans to do that within Home Firth, because I think it's a case of priorities compared to other parts of Kirklees when not in as bad a position. So it's a good idea to look at this. The only question I would raise around this again is I think it would make sense to have a discussion with the team in Kirklees to understand if we did this, is there a way of collaborating with them? How can we use that information? Because I think that we'd need to have that discussion. That's all I would say. But yeah, if we can fund something which helps them, great, yeah.
Can I just say, Paul, the idea for these particularly is around schools. So it's to help with people understanding and perhaps encouraging the idea that that if we can show the potential, because actually if there isn't a problem, there isn't a problem. But we all believe there probably is a problem with the pollution around school pickup time,
Yeah, sure.
school run. And so that's where this was focused. And I find I'm not sure that would be in terms of Kirklees's pollution measurements. But there are some significant issues about the validity of the cheaper sensors. So it would be good. I mean, we would want to talk to Kirklees about this before going off on our own. But I think it may be that the sort of work we'd want to do would never fit in the sort of air pollution, permanent air pollution challenges that Kirklees will be addressing.
I think on this one, Kath, if you could put a bit more around this in terms of something around your thoughts about how this would operate, what we'd like to do, then we can open up a discussion with Kirklees, because that was the same thing going through my mind. Is one, making sure we're using the right equipment. Two, knowing how to use the information and to do, it was all that sort of stuff. So, I could certainly then facilitate that discussion. And then, as Rachel said, if that's something which makes, is valid and we can use that, that is something that we can do fairly quickly. Okay, if you do that, Kath, and then if you want to have a call, give me a shout and we can set up a call up, and me and you, both of us can have a chat.
Greta had a question.
Sorry, Greta,
Well,
go on. Yep, I missed you.
It did link to air pollution. I just think it's, in terms of raising consciousness, it's really helpful to have evidence, providing it's valid evidence. Parents will get on board and maybe go back to those walking buses to school if they think their kids' health is being impaired. And we can use that in our publicity in a very upbeat way, and will be extremely helpful.
I absolutely agree, but again, I know I'm just.
But I take all your
cautious.
points. Absolutely, Paul.
We need we need to know how to do it, and because the worst thing, But you're right. I think it's a really good idea, and I think it's something that we can pursue. So definitely. Okay. So I think what seems to me fairly evident from that, in terms of transport, Kath, and tell me if I've got this one wrong. I think we'll pursue the air pollution idea. I think the other areas are probably going to run into next year. So I think what we've got from transport, it's Matthew and Catherine, is pursuing the discussions around the EV charge points and the air pollution sensors as two possible deliverables that we can start moving forward with. And then looking at the other elements will probably move into next year. Okay? Makes sense? Yep. And then finally, we've got waste and consumption, which is so efficient, it doesn't need any money because it's just perfect. It recycles everything. We have got money in there because clearly we've put in place the water fountain. That's been put in place. There is still one outstanding action, as Michelle said, which is for the board, that just needs to be put in place. I don't believe at the moment, John or Caroline, is there anything else that you want to put forward for this year? I'm not talking next year now, but just this financial year. Nope. I'm taking that as a no. It's sort of, if I have one of those things, I go, bang, 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 yep, up, time's up, yep, right, fine. Okay, so in summary, I believe where we are on this, and please tell me if I'm wrong, in terms of the subgroups, and we'll come on to mobilization just in a bit because there is some expenditure there. We've got environment and land use, where at the moment there may be a possibility that we could perhaps move some money from our budget to get that moving, particularly if it would be great if there was some sort of match funding, wouldn't there? I'm painting this scenario of match funding with the bright green, you know, so if there was 5,000 or whatever, that would be really good. On energy, we've got the two key areas, which are the 5,000 for the audit, 2,000 for the booklets, and the work around that. The work on transport around EV, no, get my words out, EV charge points, which is around 4,000, but we possibly think we may not, we probably won't spend all of that this year, because it may take us a bit longer to get, if you like, permission or get that pilot in place. But I think that money seems pretty solid. And on and the other part of transport is pursuing the idea of air pollution sensors that we could use within the valley, with the other areas possibly then moving into next year's budget moving forward.
Paul, just one thing is the bike racks. Why, that's something that's already easily achievable. So
yeah,
if we're happy to allocate the budget for that, I think that's something that we should look at.
it is. I'm not sure if it is as easy. It depends on where you're putting them and where the land is, but it's worth pursuing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Rachel?
Well, I was just going to say about the bike racks. I'm conscious that there was a charity called Max Bikes, isn't there, that's bought some bike racks, I think, and want to place them. So I think the issue might be, as you say, where to put them rather than necessarily the funding.
Well,
I'm happy to keep the funding in. Sorry, I'll just finish the final point, then over to you, Michelle. But I was just thinking, whilst we've focused on kind of key locations, I'm conscious we inevitably obviously talk a lot about Home Firth because it's clearly the main town. But I just wonder if there's an opportunity to also say, well, actually, yes, okay, Home Firth may be reasonably well equipped with bike racks, but if you think more widely, it's all the villages, outside village shops, things like that. Sometimes that can be the difficulty with people safely securing their bike without it being driven into, or people getting cross that it's attached to railing. So I know that's a more difficult, because we need to go out and look at all these places, but there may be opportunities there.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. Yeah.
Catherine,
I was going to say, I've asked the sort of cycling group to start looking and identifying those places, so that would be really helpful. Yeah.
And also, just to say, Max Bikes is concentrating on schools, because kids don't cycle to school because they haven't got anywhere to lock their bikes up. So that would be a really good starting place for us to be looking to be supporting that as well.
And I'm working with Rachel, so from Max Bikes, so that we're not both going for the same places.
It would be very, very good if we could do that. Not only is it helping people, but it's a very visible sign of what we're doing as well, isn't it? So yeah, if we can focus on that, then. So I think the two things there, the pollution and the bike stands, make perfect sense. So that gives us a view there of this year, and what Rich did was actually put that into a projected expenditure against budget for the year as such, and essentially if we delivered all of those, you know, that we've just talked about, and tell me if I've got this wrong, Rich, we would have spent by the end of this financial year just under 41,000.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. Now, I think you've got the feedback now. I think we need to revamp that on the feedback that we've had now around what we believe that we will do. I think it's not going to be that as such. However, I think part of that does depend on Alison, on your project, and what we can do there. So I think we need to have separate discussion around that and see how we can fund that. I'm not sure. In my own mind, I think for us to contribute the full 10,000, I don't think would probably be appropriate, but I think it would be appropriate if we could do that in a match funding way, if there was some way of match funding. I think otherwise, I think it would probably be, I don't know what other people think, but I think it'd probably be a little bit too much in that regard. But okay.
Okay, that'd be good.
So, in terms of next financial year, because that's one of the things that we've got to discuss. I think this does give us a little bit of a map, the discussion we've just had, Rich. And I know what you've done is essentially just repeated the budget going forward. We have got a number of things which we know will repeat, but I think broadly, we would be looking at, you know, a budget which would be quite similar. Certainly wouldn't be an increased budget. And I think what we need to do, just based on that feedback today, is myself, Michelle, and you to grab a call as soon as possible to work through that and look at that. Rachel?
I was just going to say, do we not need to take a vote on the bits of budget that need to be progressed now in advance of the next meeting? Because I don't want us to end up in a situation where
yes,
you know, the vote has to be taken by the councillors on this committee.
Yep,
I
agree.
And find that we have a sort of, you know, delay where Michelle can't progress the things that she needs to progress.
Yeah, let's do that formally. You're quite right, Rachel. Thanks.
And can I say, if you don't do it, I will be blowing my brains out.
don't. Well, that wouldn't be, if you did that with that screen behind you. There's already red splattered all over the place. Maybe it wouldn't be too bad.
Okay, dramatic, but yeah.
No, Rachel's quite right. Yeah, we should do that. We should do that now. So let's run through this list. So first, we've got for mobilisation the two pieces of hardware that we need to purchase, which is a mobile phone and laptop. That's been costed at £1,000. That's for Michelle, and it was always is part of the budget. And I think we'll take these item by item. So if people are not comfortable with that, councillors on the call, please say, so we can take it as that way. So we've got Sarah, Rachel, myself. No issues with that. Okay, so we can take that as, oh, and Trevor, sorry. Trevor, I forgot about Trevor. Are you, Trevor, okay with that? Yep, okay. Then we'll run through the others. We've got environmental land use, which is a minimum of £1,000. I think that may change, but I believe certainly at this stage that it's okay to authorise the 1,000, because I don't believe, well, I'm just thinking, Rachel, take your advice on this. Should we authorise up to possibly 5,000 on that in terms of the discussion we just had,
yeah,
depending on match funding?
I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay. So again, this would be authorising that budget up to 5,000 on the basis of achieving match funding elsewhere for starting the project with Alison. Again, if there's any issues, we're fine. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Sarah. Yep. Okay. Done. In energy, total of 7,000. The 7,000 would be to cover the audit and the preparation of the energy saving booklets. Guys. Yep. Sarah, are we all right? Yep. Okay. Trevor's all right, I think. Yep. He's nodding. Yep. Good. Transport. It's just under it's 3,800, I think. Let me just add that up. 3,800 for the project on the EV charging, then 2,000 for the bike racks and 2,000 for the pollution sensors. So you're talking of it's basically a budget of about £8,000 for transport. And it's unlikely we're going to spend all that, but it'd be good to authorise that. So are people comfortable with that? So it's 8,000? Yep, good. And then the waste and consumption, I don't think we have to authorise anything on that. So I think we're fine. We're fine on that one. So I think from the spend that we've got now, Rich, have you got all of that? You okay, Michelle? Yeah. Yep. And Michelle, have we missed anything in terms of needs to be put in? I don't think we have. Nope.
Isn't there a website, Paul?
Oh, well, that was in, yeah, that was in the original, sorry, but you're right,
that's in the agenda. But the thing is, we put it down as £14.99 a month, but we could pay for the whole year. So if we can authorise the payment for 12 months, and it's actually only £9.99 now after I've had a discussion today. So that's £120 for the
Okay.
website.
All right. Okay. So that's £120 for payment of the website. That's the ongoing monthly cost
To host it. Yeah.
and to host it, which is fairly standard. And that's actually not a bad price if it's 120. Okay. Just quick vote on that. We're okay, Sarah. Right. Trevor's all right. Yep. Okay. Have we missed anything in that back there? No, we haven't. So what we need to do now then is, as I said, I think fairly quickly, myself, Michelle, and Rich need to just look at next year's budget in line with the discussions today.
We could do with getting it looked at today, really, Councillor.
Have we got, when's the deadline?
Well, it kind of needs to be done before next finance and management, which is in a few weeks.
Okay. Well, that's relatively easy if we stick to this year's budget, and that we simply do a repeat. In terms of going forward, if we look at the totals, so certainly mobilisation doesn't change because that's already in place, and that also includes within mobilisation. Tell me if I'm wrong, you're Rich, but is that including Michelle's salary as well?
That's where it is, yes.
Yep, yep. So that stays. So that's certainly something that needs to be in place. Energy strategy, we've got 14,000. So if we look at what's left from the energy, if we spend the 7,000, that would leave us another 7,000 for next year. So if we reduce that, then if we've not spent the money this year, we've got an issue next year, haven't we?
Yes.
So from my perspective, I wouldn't change it. But
you've got to build in.
Can I just interject a minute? Is this a conversation for everyone, or should we just stay on afterwards and have it?
No, we need everybody to be in.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. It's all. This is all open discussion. There's nothing private in that regard.
No, it's not that. It's more about it's 9 o'clock and people might want to go. That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, we've overrun 3 minutes. I tell you what. We've lost Rich.
Paul,
I was going to ask Rich.
Just say that ultimately the budget decision has to be voted on by the council members. So,
that's what I was going to just say.
So in light of time, it might make sense if only the council members stay to the end of that.
I was going to suggest the same thing, and I'll let everybody drop off because I think this could take us a little. Well, it won't take us forever, but it will take a bit of time. Thanks, guys. Thanks for all the input, I think, and all the effort. And I have to say, you know, the sense of where we're moving forward now is definitely a positive one. I think we've had a number of months where we all felt we were at standstill and being frustrated, but we're definitely moving. And you can see that in each of the areas. So again, really, really thanks. We're going to let you go. Sarah, if you could stay on, and obviously Trevor, Rachel, and myself, and Michelle, and then say good night to everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Bye.
Paul, could I just say,
yep.
Just when you're looking at next year's, to say what's missing from this year's now, or rather what was replaced, is the buses. And I would hope that in the next year, we will be able to do something about about public transport.
Okay.
So it's just, if you could just have that in your mind when you're looking at next year's.
Will do.
Thank
Thanks,
you very much.
Thanks, Anne. Thanks.
Sarah had something to say.
I don't know if she's waving or just saying something. Are you waving or you want to talk, Sarah? Yep, you're on mute. Still on mute.
No wonder she couldn't hear me. I was wanting Catherine's attention. I just wanted to contact her about something.
Okay, all right.
Sorry. Yeah.
No props. Michelle, I know you're desperate to have some food, so we'll try and keep this as straightforward as possible and move forward. But I think, in overview, I believe the budget is going to be a similar size budget. I certainly do not see the need to increase the budget because there is nothing that we've talked about that would be a larger element than what we have now. Even the land audit can be that could be fitted in within our current budget. I think the one that could be something, and this depends on what we want to do, as I said earlier, that could be significant, is whatever the energy audit comes up with for the Civic Hall in particular and Honley Library. That could be quite significant in terms of if we were going to fund that through our committee. But as I said earlier, I'm not sure it should be funded through our committee. Rachel?
Yeah, I was going to say, if the energy audit comes up with energy efficiency things we should do at the Civic and the Honley Library, then really that's sits within the CASC budget.
I would say so.
So I don't think that's a problem. I think I personally don't think we should suggest increasing the budget, but we're going to have monies left over from this year, so I would hope that that would mean that whilst we ask for the same budget, in practice it means sort of, because there's some left over, that we're not therefore taking the same share, if you like, of the monies that we did last year. But I don't know, Rich, can you kind of explain how it works? Because I know reserves go into kind of general reserves rather than earmarking everything.
Yeah, I mean, that's where it's a bit of a problem, really, that money doesn't roll over, as you're all aware. So you can't sort of save money within your own budget and then spend it the following year. It kind of just goes into a general pot. And then you have to kind of ask for it again. So I think basically you're quite right. You need to be asking for, a full budget. Just, if you do everything this year that's in Michelle's plan, then you would end up having no money for next year, and that's not workable. So I think you have to build the money into next year's budget on the possibility that things won't get done this year, and the money's got to be there if that's the case, because you don't want to be left with no money just because your electricity charging points project's not taken off, or your bike racks are not taken off. You've got to factor that money in just in case it doesn't happen, because otherwise there's not going to be money there to do it next year.
So on that basis, as we go back to what we said originally, my view is certainly definitely not, Rachel, to increase the budget. I think the current budget seems to me one that we would stick to, on the basis that even if we achieve, and I think we will achieve some of the projects this year, 46,000 would still help us and equip us. There may be one or two of the other actions, like on the buses, etc., that we can then incorporate. So, and we can put detail around this as well.
If 46,000 though, because that 46,000 calculation, we've been doing this discussion, we've dropped a few of those things off, so it's not even going to be that amount.
But what Rich is saying is, if we build in that for next year, in reality, yes, Rachel's point is correct. To the council, in reality, it isn't.
Yeah.
But in terms of budgeting, that's what we need to do. Yeah. So the reality is, you're quite right, Rachel. I think reality would be that there's less. The budget drops by X amount. Yeah. But we're not stating that, because that money is the money will go into reserves anyway, Rich, doesn't it? So whatever we don't spend this year goes into reserves. So the money's not lost.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. The chances are that at the end of this year and at the end of next year that you will save money. There will still be money in the pot. But you can't create a budget for yourself where you've got no money to try and do projects that you want to do. So you have to kind of overestimate. If you could estimate it perfectly, that would be brilliant, but it's not possible. So it's better to overestimate what you're going to do and what you're going to spend than it is to underestimate. The money doesn't, the money doesn't vanish anyway. It's there for us to use in the future if we don't spend it this year and next year.
Yeah.
But I think, Rich, I just think we need to be clear when we go back to full council that actually this committee isn't going to be spending the 46,000 or whatever it was that was originally forecast for this year, and that's not because it's not achieving anything, but because projects taking longer because of COVID, all that sort of thing. But as a consequence, it means that just because we're asking for the same amount, it doesn't mean that if other committees are all asking for, maybe they need a bit more for things, then suddenly we need to start pushing precept up.
Yeah, no, you're right. The precept. I mean, we've got such a surplus over the last 3 years. It's you know, I think last year we were 40,000 in surplus. The year before we were 20, and I think this year we're about 40. Now, you know, it may come down. We got the bill for the buses a couple of days ago, which I wasn't expecting it all to come in a big lump really, but that's going to be how much was it? I think it was about 16,000 or something like that came in one go. So you know, there is we still have spending to be done, but I would still imagine that at the end of the year we'll be tens of thousands in surplus, regardless. So we're not going to be.
Yeah. I was just going to say, conscious that discussions we've had on CASC in terms of supporting community assets, we've been ideally we will be over budget, because there's more community assets have come to us seeking support than anticipated. So I just wonder if we need to give a bit of thought as to whether there is, you know, I don't want us to be in a situation where we're seen as we're just stashing money away and not using it, because ultimately the whole point of the parish council is to, if we're raising money locally, we want to be spending it, we don't want to be sitting on it. Yes. Obviously we need a certain amount of reserves, but you know, we should be making the most of it. And I just wonder if there's a bit of a opportunity to link with CASC over whether some of the projects which CASC has been approached about are actually about energy efficiency, better windows, better roofs, all those sorts of things which do tick the climate emergency box in terms of, yes, they're not our direct assets, but they are community assets. So I feel as if the money, I'm not saying we should, because we have the money, we should spend it all just willy-nilly, but I think this may be an opportunity to look at viring money from this committee's budget for this year to another committee that can spend it on climate emergency achieving projects which didn't come through this committee.
You mean for this financial year, Rachel?
Yeah, for this financial year.
Yeah, I absolutely no problem with that, because I think that's the whole point of it. You know, that's the whole point, isn't it? If we've got, it's a bit like the water fountain. Okay, it was highlighted as a project or initiative, but it was also initiated elsewhere as well. So there's no, I've got no issue with that. Yeah. And particularly, I think if we're able to get the energy audit up and running, and to me this is a little bit of a crucial one, Michelle, if we can get that up and running fairly quickly, that could be identifying things that then CASC would fund, but that money can be moved from this budget then for this year into CASC anyway to fund some of that. So that would make perfect sense, Rachel. Yeah. So we
need to take some sort of vote, don't we? On
I'm just going to propose. I was going to propose as chair. I'm comfortable, absolutely, with putting in the 46,000 again, because on the basis that we've just discussed, that we really at this stage, it's difficult for us to estimate how much we're going to deliver for the rest of this year. So I think that 46,000 makes perfect sense in that regard. So I'd like to propose that. I don't know if anybody's got any contrary views to that. Happy with that? Yep. Okay.
Trevor, are you happy with that?
Oh, he's still there. I thought he'd frozen. Are you okay, Trevor? With us next year? I've repeated. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So is that okay for you at the moment, Rich? Do you need any more detail than that at the moment?
No. I mean, I think fundamentally we don't need to get bogged down into how much is here and there. In a sense, as Councillor Hogley is saying, there's opportunity to move between budgets within the climate emergency budgets or outside of it. That's just the nature of it. So you don't need to be too worried about getting tied into these figures. The committee can vote to move it as it sees fit.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, well that's done, and thanks, Rich, for for facilitating that. It's one of the areas that we probably sometimes don't give enough focus on as well. And thanks everybody for staying that little bit later. Sorry, I failed to do it within the 2 hours.
Oh,
Rachel?
there's one item left, which is the Climate Action Partnership Memorandum.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that one because I thought we covered it in the last meeting, but apologies, we'll go on that. But I thought we'd had this.
I don't have anything to add on it, but I thought it was
Yeah.
being brought to full council sometime soon.
Yeah, the idea that it's hopefully the next council, the next full council. Liz was trying to get it onto the agenda, wasn't she, Rich? I don't know if she did.
No, it will be. Yeah, it will be.
Yeah. And we agreed at the last meeting, if you recall, that the committee, this committee supported it. You've Rachel raised some issues in between, not issues, some good comments actually around the MOU, and John Queenan's working on that at the moment. So what Rachel raised was some points around clarification of, if you like, how it would work, the mutual benefits, etc. And yeah, John's taken that away to have a look at it. So yeah, it would be at the next meeting.
Okay, that's fine.
Yep. Sorry, that's the only reason I didn't pick it up, because I knew we'd covered it in the last meeting. We missed anything else? No, I don't think we have. That's it. Brilliant. All right.
Okay.
Thanks everybody again.
Have a nice holiday, Michelle.
Thanks a
Vacation.
lot. Thanks,
Bye. Bye.
Trevor. Bye. She's on vacation now.
It is now.